Hello everybody, I'm Cabal, welcome to my channel. A while ago I made a video about my predictions which cards of the Gadgetzan expansion in Hearthstone are going to be good and which one are not. And now some time has passed and I just want to take a look back at, how my predictions were. How often I was right, how often I was wrong. I'm not going to go through each card, I'm going to highlight some of the cards which surprised me. And this video is going to be only the neutrals, and then I'm going to make a separate one for the class cards. So, starting with the neutrals, Mistress of Mixtures. I thought this card would be pretty good in control decks and anti-aggro decks. But those decks aren't really around. I see it far less often than I had thought. Mainly I see it as a one-off in Reno decks, sometimes in Warlocks. But there's barely a place for it because, well, everybody is playing aggro or something very specific like Jade Druid, where you don't need this card. So, yeah, you don't really see this that often. Now, Patches. I did think Patches is pretty good, or thought that Patches would be pretty good back when the expansion launched. It's better than I thought. Even better. Even though I thought it's pretty good, it is better. It's hands down the single Gadgetzan legendary that I see the most often. It's an amazingly good aggro card. It barely has any downside if you don't draw it before you can play a pirate and have its summon effect. As long as you don't draw it before that, it has zero downside. I've never seen this having a downside in any game so far, unless you draw it first, but that is somewhat unlikely. So this is very, very, very strong, especially with Small-Time Buccaneer, which is also very, very strong, and those two together, for Warrior, who has now 4 1-drop pirates that can all summon Patches, or 6 possibly, that is pretty good. The next one I wanted to talk about is Sturdy Rat. I thought, first of all, it does see some play, though very, very, very fringe play. So it's not a mainstay card in any deck I see regularly, but I do see it from time to time. And it's actually quite strong, or possibly quite strong against decks that are not aggro decks. Because if it pulls out your opponent's Reno or his N'Zoth, that is very, very strong. It can be game winning. So that's more of an effect, more the effect that I saw this card being useful for in actual play. Against aggro decks, it is less good than I had thought. It doesn't, and as a result, it doesn't really see play too much, even though there is a lot of aggro around. The next one I wanted to talk about is... where is he? Hello? No, let's do it like this. I jumped over him. Kazakus. Now, Kazakus, it is the coolest card ever. That was my prediction. It is in every Reno deck. That was also pretty much my prediction. One thing I wasn't so sure about is whether the custom spell is reliable enough and strong enough. It definitely is. The custom spell is amazingly good. It's very strong pretty much all the time. You can never be sure to get a certain effect, but all the effects, or there are enough strong and good effects that you will always be able to build a spell that is very, very, very good. But it seems that it's still not enough to make Reno decks stable enough against all the aggro decks that are out there. And as a result, Reno decks are still not that common. There are more Reno decks around than... there are some Reno decks around, which is remarkable in a situation as we have right now. But, yeah. It's not, on its own, not good enough to push Reno into a place where it's good enough and strong enough to survive against all the aggro decks. But this is such a cool card. Okay, next. Let's just do it like this. The Nagger Corsair. I did think that it's possibly a usable card in weapon pirate decks, so druid or not druid, rogue or warrior. Yeah, it turns out it isn't. Pirate, rogue isn't really that much of a thing, and at that price range, those decks that I saw, those rogue decks that I saw that tried to play with pirates, they mainly wanted to either already seal the game by then, be very aggressive, or they wanted to just change into something else, something else that's not pirates by that part of the game. So Jade pirate decks or something like that. So some experimentation, but generally, this card it's too expensive. It comes in too late for aggressive pirate decks, and its effect is not strong enough and not big enough to make that much of an impact. So it doesn't see play. The next one is the red mana worm. I did think this card could potentially see play as a finisher in Miracle Rogue. I don't think that I ever saw anybody play this card. That doesn't really mean that it wouldn't work in that scenario. It's just that Miracle Rogue is pretty much dead. I don't really see... I see them sometimes, but they're very, very rare. And simply because they are too fragile against aggro decks. And with everybody being aggro, an aggro fragile deck is not the thing you want to play. And if you try to play a Miracle Rogue, you will have to play something that is very, very fast, and as fast as possible, essentially. And while I do think that still think it's perhaps theoretically possible that this could be used as a finisher, it would be slow-ish. And that's not what you want. So yeah, sees zero play. Then we have the second-rate Bruiser. Now, it does see some play, but not much. It pretty much has exactly the problem that I thought it would. If you are in the situation where you can play it discounted, you're often so far behind on the board that it doesn't do enough, and you would essentially need a board clear, not a somewhat easily removable taunt. So I did see it a number of times in play. It never really did anything. Maybe that is because I don't play super aggressive decks, and maybe it's better against the super aggressive decks, but even when I played it in my own decks against, or as a tool against super aggressive decks, it didn't really work out. So it's actually worse than I had thought. Because even at 3 mana, 4/5 taunt, in that situation is, yeah, I'd much rather just have an AoE. Would be far better. So it's less good than I would have thought. Then there's Am Black Paw. I thought this would be a great Jade Golem card, and I thought it would be in every Jade Golem deck there is. She isn't. Most Jade decks are Jade Miracle Druids, and they don't really need that card. So it's one that gets cut quite often because it's expensive, and you'd rather have cheaper cards and more AoE cards and more cards that allow you to survive the early game. Because with the Jade Miracle Druid deck, you essentially have infinite Jade Golem cards anyway if you want. And if you do it right, or do it well. And that's also something that you really don't need most of the time. So yeah, Am Black Paw gets cut quite often. It's still a good card, but it's not as good as I would have thought. Now then there is Rathian. Rathian actually has a misprint on its card. It says Taunt, Battlecry, draw cards until you draw one that isn't a dragon. The actual card text is draw a card from your deck that isn't a dragon, which makes this card quite bad. Now in theory, if it drew you a number of dragons from your deck, that could be pretty good, but it apparently it never does. I mean, I've seen it rarely played by others. I tried to play it in my priest, dragon priest deck for quite a while. And yeah, my conclusion is it's a misprint. It just says draw a card that isn't a dragon, and that makes it pretty bad. So, no. Now, another thing is all these discover cards. The only one of those that I ever really saw being played is the Cabal Career. That's because it's Mage, Priest, Warlock. I saw it sometimes in Mage and Warlock, and only in Reno Mage or Reno Warlock. Generally, it's not a really good card, but in Reno decks you have to fill your deck with more cards, and there it does make the cut most of the time. But generally speaking, yeah, as I thought, the variance is just way too high. And it's actually so far off that even this cheaper one, yeah, it doesn't see play. The variance is too high. There are too many crappy cards you could get. Too many cards you can't actually use. So, no, they don't see play at all. Now let's see if I can... does it work like that? I actually didn't try that before. Yeah, kind of. What I'm talking about is essentially all the hand buff cards. Like this one, or what's it called? Fight Promoter. This one, all the cards that are playing around with the concept of buffing the cards in your hand. There's also the Don Honcho. They pretty much see zero play at all. Some people experimented with hand buff Paladin for a while. I'm guessing they started doing that after Trump or Crip or somebody did it on stream or in a video. Yeah, actually, those were not terrible decks. They weren't crazy bad. Sometimes they were actually pretty good and quite strong, but generally they were just worse and more volatile than aggro, so it died down pretty quickly after that. And so cards like Don Honcho, Doppelgangster, and all the hand buff cards see zero play. And that's mostly that. One other thing I wanted to do was look at the legendaries and see how much play do they see, how often you find them in decks. And yeah, patches all the time. This is definitely the number one legendary from the set, the one that's played by far the most. It's everywhere. Auction Master Beardo, zero play. I have never seen anybody play this card. Sergeant Sally, zero play. I've never seen anybody play this card. Genzo the Shark, I think I saw it once, and there it didn't do anything, but pretty much essentially zero play. Kazakis, 100% play in Reno decks, but Reno decks are not that common, so in a way it does see a lot of play, and in another way it doesn't see that much play. It's, well, as I said, 100% of Reno decks, but Reno decks are not that common. Finja, the Flying Star. I saw it once or twice, I think, and it never really did anything. So very rare to see this, and yeah, not very effective. Am Black Paw. You do see Aya from time to time. There are some Jade Druid decks that don't cut her and keep her in. So that you see her there. And in pretty much every other Jade Golem deck that sees play, Aya has a place in that. The problem is, you don't really see other Jade decks. So Aya is played reasonably often in Jade decks. Madame Goya, never saw that even for a single time, so it never sees play. Rathian, I rarely saw that in other people's decks. I still have it in one of my own decks because I still have hope that it might one day win me a game. It doesn't. So yeah. Very rarely experimented with, but currently sees zero play. Don Honcho, as I said, in one deck that people experimented with for a short time, it saw play, but other than that, I've never seen this card. Major Noggenfogger, I've never seen this card. So as a result, we have one universally one legendary that's universally played a lot. One that is in every deck of a certain type. One that is played situationally in a deck group in the Jade Golem decks sometimes. And that's it. Of the neutral legendaries, there's one played a lot, one played a lot in a somewhat rare deck, and one played from time to time. Which is, I think, not great, but yeah, that's legendaries for you. So yeah, that's for the neutrals. Otherwise, there weren't, for me at least, not too many surprises. Not too many cards where I thought they would be great and they turned out not to be, or too many where I thought those are going to be crappy, they turned out to be pretty good. What about you? Are there any cards where you thought this will never see play and it turns out it's pretty good, or the other way around? If you do, tell me in the comments. And I will see you in the next video about the class cards. I'm Cabal Career, have a good time.